Right, that's just about it from me. As always, there's of course plenty more on the website. If you are there, do download the BBC News app as well. And if you are online, you can get me on social media. I'm at L Vaughan Jones. For the moment, though, that's it from me. Thank you very much for your company. Geeta will be with you at the top of the hour from now. Bye-bye.
Hello, this is Impact. I'm Geeta Guru-Murthy. Concerns over China's military ambitions take centre stage on the sidelines of the G20 meeting in Delhi.
Guilty verdict signed by the four
Prominent American lawyer and the subject of Netflix's latest true crime documentary is found guilty of murdering his family. The former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson will face a grilling later this month in a probe over his lockdown-breaching parties whilst in office. And a Nobel Peace Prize winner from Belarus is sentenced to 10 years in jail in a case human rights groups dismiss as politically motivated. That's all coming up here on Impact. Hello, welcome to the programme. The G20 gathering in Delhi may have come to an end yesterday, but for four of the foreign ministers there, today was a rare chance to gather together for their club known as the Quad. At the meeting, the US, India, Australia and Japan. On the agenda, concerns about potential militarisation of territorial disputes in East Asia and the Pacific. Now, most analysts see that as a reference to China, but as is often the way when trying to avoid any escalation, there was no direct reference to Beijing. Let's take a moment to explain just what the Quad actually is and what it's meant to do. Well, its official name is the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, and it started out as a group set up to offer aid and disaster assistance in the wake of the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. Do stay with us here on Impact. More to come. TikTok in hot water. Why the video sharing app is facing bans from governments right around the world. This is Impact on BBC World News. I'm Geeta Guru-Murthy. More violence in the West Bank. Palestinian officials say a 15-year-old boy has been shot dead in the town of Azan. They say two other teens were also wounded in the incident. One is in a critical condition. The Israeli army says the boys were throwing fireworks at Israeli cars and threw petrol bombs at troops. Our Middle East correspondent Tom Bateman is in Jerusalem and has the latest. One of the greatest jazz saxophonists of all time, Wayne Shorter, has died in Los Angeles. He was 89. Wayne Shorter came to prominence collaborating with Miles Davis's second quintet in the 1960s. He went on to lead his own band, producing seminal albums on the Blue Note label, including Speak No Evil, and formed the jazz fusion group Weather Report. During his long career, he was awarded 11 Grammys. I'm on Twitter. See you in a moment. Hello, this is Impact. I'm Geeta Guru-Murthy. Foreign ministers from the US, India, Japan and Australia have said they're extremely concerned by the militarisation of disputed areas in the East and South China Seas at a time of growing Chinese assertiveness in the region. Warnings over a global obesity crisis. A new report predicts more than half the world's population will be classed as obese or overweight by 2035. And the BBC's infiltrated gangs in Eastern Europe who smuggle puppies into the UK. The animals used for breeding were found in squalid conditions. That's all coming up here on Impact. to the war in Ukraine now, where the head of Russia's Wagner Group has said its forces now surround most of Bakhmut. The East Ukrainian city has been the focus of extensive fighting in recent weeks. Yevgeny Prigozhin said there was now only one route out of the city, and he called on Ukraine's president to withdraw his troops. Ukraine's acknowledged that its troops in Bakhmut are under severe pressure and may have to pull out. Casualties on both sides have been severe. Well, as you can see, Bakhmut is a fairly small town set in farmland. Before the invasion, it had a population of around 73,000 people. Victoria Zuhan from the BBC Ukrainian service explains that the BBC has been unable to verify the claims made by the Wagner Group and explains who exactly they are. Okie doke. Thank you very much indeed for that, Emily Wilson. And if you want to watch the full documentary, Inside the Illegal Puppy Trade, on BBC World News, it's on at 20:30 GMT today, Friday the 3rd of March, and over the weekend, and on the BBC iPlayer if you're in the UK. Do stay with us on Impact. Still to come, warnings over a global obesity crisis. A new report predicts more than half the world's population will be classed as obese or overweight by 2035. This is Impact on BBC World News. A report published the World Obesity Atlas warns that over half of the world's population will be overweight by 2034 if prevention and treatment does not improve. The report also says that rates are rising fastest amongst children and in low or middle income countries in Africa and Asia. Well, the World Obesity Federation published the report, and their CEO, Johanna Ralston, joins us now. Thanks very much for your time, Johanna. Just tell us, is this basically a result of countries getting wealthier? Now, an international team of astronauts has safely docked at the International Space Station in the autonomously piloted capsule Crew Dragon. The craft, built by Elon Musk's SpaceX company, docked 25 hours after takeoff on its 6th crewed mission. The team is made up of 2 astronauts from the United States, 1 from Russia, 1 from the United Arab Emirates. They'll spend 6 months in orbit conducting more than 200 experiments. We're all trying to work out whether we can get tickets for Glastonbury and who we want to see. We'll see you soon. Bye for now. Hello, this is Impact. I'm Geeta Guru-Murthy. Concerns over China's military ambitions feature on the sidelines of the G20 meeting in Delhi. A British parliamentary probe into Partygate finds evidence that breaches of COVID rules would have been obvious to Boris Johnson. A prominent American lawyer and the subject of Netflix's latest true crime documentary is found guilty of murdering his family. And a Nobel Peace Prize winner from Belarus is sentenced to 10 years in jail in a case human rights groups dismiss as politically motivated. That's all coming up here on Impact. Welcome to the programme. The G20 gathering in Delhi may have come to an end yesterday, but for 4 of the foreign ministers there, Friday today was a rare chance to get together for their club known as the Quad. At the meeting, the US, India, Australia and Japan. On the agenda, concerns about potential militarisation of territorial disputes in East Asia and the Pacific. Now, most analysts see that as a reference to China, but as is often the way when trying to avoid any escalation, there was no direct reference to Beijing. Let's take a moment to explain just what the Quad is and what it's meant to do. Well, its official name is the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, and it started out as a group set up to offer aid and disaster assistance in the wake of the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. OK, Annie Marin, UN Special Rapporteur on the situation in Belarus, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Do stay with us here on Impact. Still to come. TikTok in hot water. Why the video sharing app is facing bans from governments around the world. This is Impact on BBC World News. More violence in the West Bank. Palestinian officials say a 15-year-old boy has been shot dead in the town of Azon. They say 2 other teens were also wounded in the incident. One is in a critical condition. The Israeli army says the boys were throwing fireworks at Israeli cars and threw petrol bombs at troops. Our Middle East correspondent Tom Bateman in Jerusalem and has more.
Tim Allman, BBC News.
We are back very soon, and I'm on Twitter at the moment at Geeta Guru-Murthy. If you'd like to get in touch, we would love to hear from you. See you very soon. Bye for now. This is BBC World News, the headlines. A British parliamentary probe into Partygate finds evidence that Boris Johnson may have misled Parliament about breaching COVID rules. A judge is preparing to sentence the prominent American lawyer Alex Murdoch after he was found guilty of murdering his wife and son. International outrage after a Nobel Peace Prize winner from Belarus is sentenced to 10 years in jail. And concerns over China's military ambitions feature on the sidelines of the G20 meeting in Delhi. Now, a judge in South Carolina is preparing to sentence Alex Murdoch, the prominent lawyer who was found guilty of the murder of his own wife and son. Prosecutors claimed that Murdoch wanted to distract attention from the fact that he'd stolen millions of dollars from clients. Well, our correspondent Gary O'Donoghue is in Washington and following this for us. Gary, what are we expecting to see in the next few minutes? OK, well, that is the sentencing there of Murdoch by the judge. And this case has been followed hugely across the US. And this murder trial in South Carolina, Alex Murdoch sentenced to 2 life terms as expected by the judge. He did speak, again, denying that he was guilty. He said, "I repeat this, I am innocent. I'd never under any circumstances hurt my wife. I'd never under any circumstances hurt my son." But the judge said that that account was not credible and not believable. Gary O'Donoghue, our correspondent in Washington, has been following this case. Gary, very interesting to see this unfold, a very different way of court proceedings unfolding, and amazing to see the response between the judge and the defendant here. Gary O'Donoghue there in Washington following this case of Alex Murdoch, who has now been sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms in jail for the murder of his own wife and his own son. That case wrapping up there in South Carolina in the US. Now let's move on to the rest of today's news. And the former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson will give evidence to a parliamentary committee later this month who are looking into whether he lied to Parliament. It relates to the parties which he took part in during the COVID lockdown and the statements he made to Parliament about those parties. It comes as Conservative MPs express anger that the Partygate investigator Sue Gray has been offered a job with the opposition Labour Party as Sir Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff. Rob Watson has more. Rob Watson on the latest political developments here. We're going to have more on that in a few minutes. Stay with us for that. Well, we are bringing you continued coverage of the UK political scene here on BBC News, and we know that the former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is going to be giving evidence to a parliamentary committee in a couple of weeks, and we're going to get more on this with John McTernan, a political strategist and commentator. John, thanks for joining us. Just first of all, on the fact that Boris Johnson, we know now, is going to be giving evidence on the sort of Partygate and the findings against him and whether he misled Parliament. What is your sense of what his position is? And because the Parliamentary Committee has already put out a statement on this. Sorry to interrupt, we're out of time. John McTernan, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for speaking to us. This is Impact on BBC News. Thank you very much for being with us down the years. Bye from us for now.
Hello, the remains of Storm Juliet are still bringing wet and windy